Alright, so I am going to be adding some post-commentary to this run that I did of Sonic the Hedgehog's GameWorld on the Sega Pico. This is running on real hardware, so I am using a Pico. You just saw the little stylus there in my webcam. And I just did a hard reset here. So I'm playing on actual hardware, obviously with a real game cart, because, well, you kind of have to use the cart because it's a little storybook. So I figured rather than just uploading this without really much commentary, I figured I would redo some commentary, because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people that are curious about this run. So I figured I'd kind of explain the category itself and what I'm doing, and the order in which I do it, and how I'm doing it, what's the speed tech, like what's going on. So first of all, we play on easy, and there's a specific reason for this. I know it's a children's education game. Well, not really education, but it's an early childhood game. But let me tell you, you do not want to play this speedrun on hard. You're going to see exactly why I do not want to play this on hard for one of the games, and the way that I have the category set up for this to make it pretty much an actual speedrun. This is not a meme run. It's an actual speedrun. Character selection is only cosmetic. It only determines which character says hello to you between stages and who you control in the final stage against Robotnik. Okay, so this is a compilation of minigames, essentially. It's not really an educational game, per se. It's a compilation of minigames, and the way I have this category set up is we go in order of pages. So I have to start on page 1 and 2, and then 3, 4, 5, 6, and then finally Robotnik. Because, well, when you read a book, you don't start from the back page and work your way forward, do you? So that's the way I figured I'd set up the category, is to have it go in page order, because you actually flip the book pages on the Pico, and it advances through the game. That first game there is pretty much just down to timing. You can do that faster if you want to be a little risky. There are certainly faster strats for that, but I use a slightly more consistent method to set up the basketball minigame. And that one there is pretty much just mashing a giant button on the Pico as fast as I can to get around the circle as soon as possible. This one here, you got to be careful. This one, you can lose quite a bit of time. So this one, I have to hold the button down and let go specifically when the arrows land on 50. And the timing, as you can see, is pretty tight. So there, I hit a 30 instead of a 50, which is okay. As long as I don't hit any of the X's or the 10s, the run should be fine. So the goal is to have some pretty precise timing here, and you can see it's sort of a race on top between the different characters to try and get as many 50 skee ball rolls as you can. This one here I missed, and this is where I lose approximately 7 seconds or more on this first split here. But of course we finish it out, get the win. And another thing for this category is that I require maximum points. So every game you have to receive the maximum amount of points possible. So that creates some pretty intense moments later in the run with some of the mini games. This one here is pretty much just mash as hard as you can. I'm actually doing sort of like mashing to the beat of the song, but this one's kind of trivial. You can see the points up top, so I'm always in the lead by a few points. So I kind of just have some fun with this one.
Imagine if I lost.
Yeah, imagine if I lost. I just commentate. It is possible if I don't mash hard enough towards the end. I guess I'll use this time to note that the Japanese version of Sonic's GameWorld on the Pico is quite different. It includes a lot of gambling minigames, whereas the US version has a lot more sort of like actual minigames that you play. So the Japanese version would be pretty different, and probably not as fun for speedrunning, considering most of it is up to random luck. Alright, so we've flipped a page, and we are moving on to page 3 and 4. This one here is pretty much just whack-a-mole. You just have to pretty much get through this one with the maximum point value, so you actually do have to pay attention here. You can't miss too many of these, otherwise you won't get the maximum points required for the run. So as long as I'm paying attention, it's fine. This one is actually played by sliding. I'm sliding my stylus, or the pen, on the touchpad of the Pico, and every time I slide it over the Robotnik or the Eggman, I tap the hammer button. So that's how this one works. It's actually one of the more fun mini games in the compilation.
I don't think you can get 69. I think the highest you can get is like maybe 65.
So here you're going to see point value 20 points. almost every game, the maximum point value that you can get is 20, with the exception of one, which is coming up very soon. So this one here, you have to pick up every doll, and this one has some RNG. You have to, first of all, time the pickup correctly, and then there is a chance that the doll will drop from the crane machine. You can kind of see them wiggling, so I try and go for some close grabs. However, it's not always guaranteed. And because you have to pick up, without missing, a certain allotted amount of plushes, you need 5 of them here. If one of them drops, I do have to either retry the minigame. You don't have to reset the run. I would just have to retry the minigame. But in the case of going for world record attempts, a dropped plushie here would result in a reset. Doesn't matter which ones you pick up, you just need to get 5 of any kind. Now there is optimal menu mashing. You can kind of see me going crazy here. I am doing so much different kinds of mashing. I'm mashing with my pen on the storybook, because in order to select the next minigame, you actually have to smash on the page of the game on the Pico to select the next game. So I'm doing mashing with the pen, and I'm doing mashing with the buttons on the Pico itself. This one here is just a matter of, well, hit the correct button corresponding to the color of the flag, and you do kind of have to pay attention to this. It can be kind of tricky. The time frame to hit the correct color is not all that lenient, and also if you're colorblind, I'm sure that minigame is actually going to be quite difficult for you, because those colors are pretty indistinguishable for someone that is colorblind. Getting 20 points on that, and we are moving on to page 5 and 6, which is home to concentration. The hardest game in here. Now this is a memory game, so what I'm doing here, and I get pretty excited, there are many, many different combinations of cards. They are predetermined, but there's a ton of them. So pretty much what I do is every time I start with the same card, and if it shows a certain animal, I can have certain guesses as to which combination it will be. This one here is completely up to luck. So that one there, I pretty much just have to hope that I hit the correct animal, and in this case, I get a first try concentration minigame, which, as you can see, you cannot make more than one mistake to get the maximum of 30 points. So if I were to make 2 mistakes, two misguesses there, it would be a run reset for world record attempts, or I'd have to try it all over again. So yeah, that's sort of the deal breaker for this run. Obviously, eventually I would like to memorize every single card combination, which would take forever, and I do not use resources. I just leave this all up to memory. I don't have any kind of like file where I write down all the different possible combinations, because that would be too easy. That wouldn't be any fun. And especially if this is in a marathon presentation type setting, I don't want to be using notes. I want to be able to memorize everything. So this one here is sort of a battle between Sonic and Robotnik. There is a slight amount of skill to this, because you can kind of get better at stopping this thing to try and have it land on Sonic or rings or the question mark. But as you can see, the speed of which the roulette stops, it is kind of hard. It is possible to lose. So what I'm doing here is you just slide the pen around on the tablet, and you start and stop it where you want it to. And when it lands on the question mark, it can either be on Sonic's side or Robotnik's side. In this case, I'm going to win quite handedly. But this is another sort of choke point of the run where things can go wrong, and you can lose quite a bit of time here. Obviously, you want things to go your way by never having Robotnik throw over. This is another tricky one. It's kind of hard to like gain or lose time here. It pretty much just comes down to making sure that I pay attention to where the little flicky is in the egg, and then making sure that obviously I don't make a mistake, because later on it can become quite difficult and kind of easy to lose the position. So that's why I keep track with my pen here. And the time optimizations here are pretty much just coming down to opening the egg as soon as possible.
There are set patterns, but they can change little parts of the pattern from what I can tell. You just have to memorize a shit ton of them.
So pretty standard stuff here. This game itself is home to some original music. You're not going to hear any recognizable Sonic songs, so it's all original music. There's some pretty cool sprite artwork, especially at the end of the game. The end screen is unique to this game, so it's got all unique sprites and Sonic art. So in terms of, you know, seeing some new Sonic content that maybe you haven't seen before in a game. It's kind of cool to look at. Now, if you play on hard, hard just makes the roulette even more difficult. You can't make a single mistake to get maximum points, and it just becomes a big chore. The games in general just tend to last a little bit longer, so in terms of a speedrun setting, yeah, you're probably just going to want to play it on easy. You can see me and hear me mashing like crazy here, but we are on to the final boss, which is Robotnik himself, and this is this can be pretty intense here. So the idea is, I want to try and get to as many of these things to lift up and find the Chaos Emeralds before Robotnik. Now, it's routed in such a way where I sort of try and take a path where Robotnik will not go. So I let Robotnik sort of open up a predetermined, well, not so much predetermined, but I try and pretty much beat him to everything that he can lift up before he can get there, and just hope that he doesn't find an emerald before me, because this is random. So as you can see, I'm pretty much guaranteed. Even if he finds one, it's fine. I just have to have a majority and get the majority of those 5 Chaos Emeralds. And as you can see, the sub 10, that is because, well, the first try concentration minigame was the reason for my huge amount of time saved here. And I had been grinding away on this for quite some time, because the concentration game, and especially the ring toss, a lot of things were losing me time, but my time save here for the eventual sub 10 is due to first try concentration. So it's going to result in a lot of resets in the future, but I'm just going to have to spend the time to memorize every card pattern, and there's a ton of them. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed watching this run of Sonic the Hedgehog's GameWorld on the Sega Pico, played on real hardware. Enjoy the end screen with all the different little animals, especially my favorite, who's coming up here soon.
So beat up right now, by the way.
There's good old Flicky himself.
Definitely being abused the most it's ever been.
And you can see my sum of best there is a 9. There's Cucky, good old Cucky, my favorite. You can see my sum of best down there with a 943. I think it can go as low as like a 9, maybe a 930 with like a crazy optimized run. You'd have to have a really good diamond maze against Robotnik. You'd have to just get really lucky on the ring toss. But anyway, that's the run. Hope you enjoyed it.
Because I'm not going to let it blow up that big John check. We're keeping this one.